Good morning, everybody. Jim Hoffman here, pastor at St. John's United Methodist Church, and it is Monday. It is time for our daily devotion, and so I want to invite you to come and join me on our Facebook page. We're doing this as a live event. We've been doing this for quite a while, a few years now. Started it back in the pandemic days when we had to close down in 2020, and here we've carried it for a little over 2 years now, and so we're just continuing the trend. Love spending this time with all of you. And so come and join if you would, please. Facebook's going to be kind enough to tell me who all is watching, but you are welcome to leave a quick comment as well. It's nice to see the good mornings and the welcomes. And so I will take a moment to greet some folks that are already here. We'll tell you what scripture it is here in a moment as well, so you can find that. So, good morning, Stacy Fisher. Hello, Linda. And good morning, Mr. Dunbar. Glad to see the three of you so far. If you watch this later today, don't forget, leave a quick comment and say hello. Would appreciate you doing that, by the way. Your final report. Let me know when you're ready to present that. That's a comment to Linda Potter, by the way. We're going to be reading out of Judges chapter 20, verses 18 to 28. Judges chapter 20, verses 18 to 28. Judges chapter 20, verses 18 to 28. We don't read out of the book of Judges very often. I'm trying to think of when the last time was that we read out of the book of Judges, if we've ever read out of the book of Judges. I'm trying to think about that. Doesn't come quickly to mind. I mean, we read a lot of Psalms and Gospels and stuff like that, but Judges. Just looking to see if anybody else says good morning. Again, Judges chapter 20, verses 18 to 28. So here's our prayer. O God, by your spoken word, you created everything that is. By your incarnate word, you redeemed us. By your comforting word, you are with us still. So prepare us now to hear your word to us this day. Judges chapter 20, verses 18 to 28. The two Williams are here, Bill Longmire and my uncle, Bill Schaefer. Good morning to both of you. Judges chapter 20, verses 18 to 28. The Israelites proceeded to go up to Bethel, where they inquired to God, which of us shall go up first to battle against the Benjaminites? And the Lord answered, Judah shall go up first. Then the Israelites got up in the morning and encamped around Gibeah. The Israelites went out to battle against Benjamin, and the Israelites drew up the battle line against them at Gibeah. The Benjaminites came out of Gibeah and struck down on that day 22,000 of the Israelites. The Israelites went up and wept before the Lord until the evening, and they inquired of the Lord, Shall we again draw near to battle against our kinsfolk the Benjaminites? And the Lord said, Go up against them. The Israelites strengthened themselves and again formed the battle line in the same place where they had formed it on the first day. So the Israelites advanced against the Benjaminites the second day. Benjamin moved out against them from Gibeah the second day and struck down 18,000 of the Israelites, all of them armed men. Then all the Israelites, the whole army, went back to Bethel and wept, sitting there before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening. Then they offered burnt offerings and sacrifices of well-being before the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, ministered before it in those days. And so they said, Shall we go out once more to battle against our kinsfolks, the Benjaminites, or shall we desist? The Lord answered, Go up, for tomorrow I will give them into your hand. Our devotion writer today is Kayla Ray. Kayla is from Victoria, Australia. And her focus verse is that last verse that we just read. The Israelites asked, Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjaminites, our fellow Israelites, or not? And the Lord responded, Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands. And here is Kayla's devotion. She says, the story in Judges 20, verses 18 to 48 used to confuse me. The Israelites asked God for counsel on whether to go to battle. God told them to fight. The Israelites listened, and they lost, suffering 22,000 casualties. The Israelites went back to God to ask for counsel, and the reply was the same. They lost again, suffering another 18,000 casualties. The third time, the Israelites went before God and asked for counsel. And God answered, Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands. And finally, the Israelites won. As I read this story, I wondered, why would God clearly guide the Israelites and then allow them to fail? It didn't make sense to me. But this past year, when I faced my own apparent failure after following God's will for me, I saw this beautiful truth. God's ways are not our ways, and God's thoughts are not ours. In each battle, the Israelites were learning the best strategies to prepare them for future battles. And most important, they were learning to have complete faith and dependence on God, despite the circumstances. God sees victory even in our apparent defeat, because God knows the important lessons we are learning along the way. So the thought for the day is, God will use my moments of discouragement to complete a good work in me. I remember someone once saying, I think I probably read this in a leadership book or heard someone say it or something like that, but they said, you learn more from your failures than you ever will your successes. And I would say partly that may be true. Because most of the time when we are successful, we don't really analyze why we were successful. We just take it and run with it, right? We had a victory and off we go. And we use more the adrenaline and the empowerment of that victory than maybe the hard lessons learned or what it took to be able to be successful in those moments. So we don't necessarily always dissect why we're successful. People who are wanting to grow and wanting to learn will dissect a negative, will dissect a setback, will dissect a defeat. They want to know why. They try to figure out what happened, right? What was it? If you've ever watched Ted Lasso, right? You think about Ted Lasso. They started running this total football kind of thing in season 3, if you haven't watched it. And they were successful at it. And they started winning games. And they really didn't tinker with it. They didn't try to figure out how to improve it or anything like that. They just went with it because they were on a winning streak. But you might remember what created the necessity for that. A lot of failure. They had to start dissecting why it was that they, as a team, were not playing well cohesively and why they weren't winning. So we have a tendency to dissect our failures, our defeats. We want to know why, and then what we can do to try to avoid that in the future. In many ways, life is, a learning pool. As long as you go, the longer you go along through life, the more you learn, and you look back across your life, and you see the opportunities where you could have dissected some of your successes and maybe capitalized those even more. And you look back on some of your failures and you think, why did that go that direction? But then you might also look back and see the hand of God moving and shaping along the way as well. how God has directed and led, been present, how God has walked and journeyed with us, and how God has turned some of these things that we would consider to be failures or defeats or setbacks, has really turned them into something positive. I didn't have much success in the business world, to be honest with you. Kind of bounced around for the 8 years between military service and when I entered into ministry. Kind of went from this job to that job, pretty much all in the same field and stuff like that, but it wasn't just wasn't my place, and it felt discouraging and it felt like a setback. But you know what? Actually, God was just moving me to the place where I would eventually be able to say, you know what? It is time for me to do what God has created me to do, and to enter ministry and find myself in this space and place. And now I get to look back on it and say, you know what? Even though I might have been discouraged in many things, God's hand was guiding and leading. Even though I thought I was failing, God was using that to create something different, to give me an opportunity to actually be able to live into what God was calling me to do. And maybe as you look back over the landscape of your life, you'll be able to see the same thing. But we are also a forward-looking people, which means that as we go forward in the days and weeks and months and years ahead still in our lives, again, as I said a moment ago, if you are someone who is watching this later on, don't forget, leave a quick comment. Would appreciate you doing that. Good morning, Barbara and Chris. I'm so glad that both of you joined as well. Don't forget, friends, I am praying for you. I invite you to pray for me, and don't forget, take an opportunity to also pray for one another this day. God's peace and grace be upon you. See you tomorrow.